everyone. I'm Kathleen Denley, and this is Jane Josephs.
Hi.
And today we are going to be talking about her debut novel, The Ruby Knot. So I hope you enjoy it.
Thank you, Kathleen. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, I'm so excited to do this. I've been wanting to talk to you about your book since it first came out.
You were in on it for sure.
Yes, so I should let you guys know that we are actually friends and we are part of the same critique group. And so I got to see bits and pieces of this book as it was being made, but I never got to see the whole thing until it was published. And oh my gosh, it just blew me away.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That's the highest compliment coming from you, Kathleen.
Well, I really, really love your book and I've been telling everybody about it ever since it came out.
Thank you.
I know a lot of my friends and family have read it and just raved about it to me. For those who haven't read The Ruby Knot yet, can you give us a quick description of what the story is about?
Okay. What's my back cover blurb? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. After a romantic encounter with C.J. Jensen in Las Vegas, which results in some consequences called Timmy, Katie Ryan is determined to get her life back on track. Once she's back in San Diego, working as a graphic designer for a church, she's determined that she will put her life back together, and she very much enjoys fellowship with Noah Davidson, who's a church intern. And as the story progresses, she needs to decide, is it Noah or is it CJ, or will the choice be taken away from her altogether?
All right.
All right. Okay.
I want to get to know you a little bit more because even though we're friends and we're in a critique group together, we don't always talk about personal things.
That's so true.
So I was thinking about this book and how important the dad's role is in a child's life. And it got me thinking, what is your father like? How important was his role in your life?
Oh, my dad is, I just can't say enough good things about him. He was a gentle, kind, loving man. And he was the guy who had this beautiful baritone tenor voice. And he would use it to sing the Lord's Prayer to me as I was going to sleep at night. It was just wonderful.
Oh,
I had the best childhood, just the best.
That's really sweet.
Yes.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yes.
Well, I think that love of the father-daughter relationship, the father-child relationship shows in your book.
Oh, good.
Let's see. So where did you actually grow up? Are you from California?
No. California, no. I grew up in West Virginia. So I'm a West Virginia girl. Country roads, all the whole 9 yards. And then I moved to Ohio for school, then Pennsylvania for school, then Maryland, then Chicago.
You've been around.
So But West Virginia is still probably, I think of my roots in West Virginia.
So what brought you to California? Because I know we're in California now, and your book is all set in San Diego.
That's right. Well, I came kicking and screaming to California. My husband accepted a job out here. He was spun off from Baxter Healthcare to a small group, and he said, we're going, and I said, I don't want to go. And so I, delayed for quite a while. And then, because I had a really active life back there in Illinois. I was in landscaping, I was in politics, and there's no politics like local politics.
Oh, really?
Yes. Really. You make some great friends and you make some great enemies. And I did both.
Okay.
But that's how we got here. My husband brought us, and I came kicking and screaming.
So you told a little story at your book signing, which I had the pleasure of attending recently. And I would love for our viewers to hear about... You said you make friends and some not so much friends, how that played into your writing journey.
Yes. Well, when I knew I was going to have to come to California, I decided that I would write a book. And there was one particular woman that didn't like me very well in politics. And of course, I didn't like her so well either. And so I decided in this first book that I would write, I would kill her off. Is that the story you're talking about?
Yeah. I remember the first time I heard that. Yes. And I was just like, did not know that about Jane.
Oh, and I was just so angry with her.
And what happened to that book?
Well, that book went by the wayside. First of all, I couldn't write a book. I didn't have any tools to write a book with. And so, that sent me scrambling to the bookstore to find out how to write a novel. And so, I devoured some different books, and then I started writing. But that whole scenario of killing that woman off, that never materialized. And instead, I started to write romance.
Okay.
I'm a romantic at heart, so of course I wanted to write romance.
So that first book wasn't a romance.
No. We're not going to talk a whole lot about that first book because I was not in a great place in my life with Jesus. I mean, he is the love of my life. He was for many, many years. And then there was a little lull in my relationship with him. And when I moved to California, I was in that lull. And so the books I was trying to write were not wholesome, kind of inspirational books that I like to write now. So we're not going to talk about that first book.
Well, but I'm glad you brought that up because that was something you kind of touched on before, and it made me think about your character, Katie Ryan, and how in the beginning of the book she's dealing with some consequences from her own lull, so to speak, in her relationship.
Yes. Katie didn't have a super strong faith. I mean, she had some experiences with God, but she didn't have the foundation of time in the Word, time in fellowship and small group studies. And so she was a little vulnerable when she met CJ. I guess we should say a lot vulnerable.
Yeah.
Yes.
She made some decisions that she later had to deal with the consequences.
That's exactly right.
Yes. Okay. So how did you come up with the inspiration for this premise for this book?
I think I always had in the back of my mind that one of the things you never want to happen to your daughter or to yourself even is an unwanted pregnancy. And so in our church, I did happen to have a little bit of acquaintance with a young woman who did experience just that, and she was just so dear. But I got to thinking, what is the response of a church family when a young girl is pregnant out of wedlock? And so that was part of my inspiration. Just thinking through that scenario. And then, of course, also, because I work at a church, I was inspired to think, interns are just great to have in a church. They bring fresh life and just great, great tools to the whole scenario. And then also, I decided that CJ would be a Navy SWCC. And the SWCC are Special Warfare Combatant Craft Crewmen. And I knew about them because my son is one.
Right, and you talk about the SWCC a lot in the book, and CJ is a SWCC.
Yes, correct.
And can you spell, for those people who haven't seen your book yet, can you spell SWCC for us?
SWCC is just the initials SWCC, but S stands for Special, W, Warfare, C, Combatant Craft, Crewman. And they're a branch of the military that's not very large, a small community of probably a fourth of the size of the SEALs, the Navy SEALs. And they primarily do missions of their own, but they also support the SEALs from insert them into probably pretty dangerous positions and extract them, sometimes, under fire. So they drive fast boats and they handle heavy guns, big guns. And so they're pretty tough. You should see my son's muscles.
And it seems like they form some pretty solid relationships with the other men that they work with.
Yes, because they really are dependent on one another. Like on one of these small rib boats, there are only 6 of them. So they need each other. They all have a specific job and they all really need each other. So they do form close bonds. And as you'll see if you read the book, their nickname is Dirty Boat Guys.
I was going to ask you about that because let's be honest.
Yes.
The Dirty Boat Guys of Coronado series isn't the series of a title you would expect for a Christian fiction.
Yes. And it is interesting what will pop up when you go on Amazon to buy my book. Yes. Recommended reading. Oh, no, wait a minute, no. But that's really what they call themselves. And when you see the down and dirty work that they do, then you can see why they say they're the Dirty Boat Guys.
Yeah, and it definitely makes your book stand out within our genre, for sure.
Yes.
It's kind of memorable.
I debated, but in the end, I just sort of couldn't resist it. And it is a tribute to these guys who put their lives on the line.
Yeah.
For us.
Getting back to the story a little bit, in the beginning, we kind of alluded to it already, that Katie's dealing with some consequences of some not so great choices.
Right.
And even though the consequences, there's some positives to that. Some very big positives. There's this particular line that I particularly, particular.
Right.
There's this line that stood out to me, and I wanted to get your thoughts on where it came from and how it might connect to your life. And it's this. It says, it's a moment when Katie Ryan is talking to her child who is not born yet, and she says, just a couple of hours of quick, easy labor, okay? Like she's trying to bargain with her unborn child. And I thought that was so cute. And I was wondering, is that what your labor was like? Your first labor? Was it quick and easy?
Actually, the weekend that I went into labor, my mother and father-in-law came to visit. I'm pretty sure that's why I was 2 days early. But they came to town. They had gone to church with my husband. I said, I'm not feeling real great, but I never in a million years thought that, this was labor. Well, I barely got him home from church to get me to the hospital. So, yes, my first labor was very, very fast. And my second was kind of fast too, but I thought that's enough.
And we won't give away whether or not that works out for Katie.
Right.
You'll have to read the book to find out.
Yes.
Okay, let's see. What else did I want to talk to you about? Okay. So in the book, Katie has an actually pretty solid support system.
Yes.
And I wanted to ask you, what are your thoughts on how important a support system is to someone in this sort of a situation?
Yes. Katie goes to live at the home of a woman named Julie, who is a Stephen minister. Now, Stephen ministry is all across the world. So it's an actual organization that really does help. They come alongside people who are going through kind of a tough time. And they are great listeners. They pray for the person, but they don't impose their will on the person. They just are great listeners. And so Julie comes alongside Katie. In fact, she invites her to come into her home and live. And she just is there. She's just a wonderful support. And really, throughout the book, you'll see there are some more people who come along to support Katie, too, including the pastor that she works for.
Yes. And so let's talk a little bit about where she works and her relationships.
Yeah.
You wrote a little bit of a love triangle.
I did, yes.
So you want to tell us about that?
Oh, it's the hardest book I've ever tried to write. I mean, the love triangle is, it's just difficult because you want this protagonist to love both these guys, and yet you don't love both these guys, And so I tried and tried and tried, but in the end, I think, well, I'm not gonna say anything. I'm prejudiced for sure, but I tried my best. Let's just say that I tried my best to make this tension really real in this story, because Katie, being full of condemnation for herself, full of shame, she latches on to Noah as just this wonderful guy who, she thinks, well, maybe I could have a future with him, me and my son. And in the meantime, she deeply loves CJ. Mm-hmm. So, but it's a hard story to write.
But I think you did such a good job of it.
Thank you.
Really do. I know how hard it is to write relationships like that, and you pulled it off beautifully.
Well,
the tension between her feeling like Noah is maybe the right choice because he has his life seemingly all together, and CJ being connected to that mistake that she made.
Yes.
And yet having the conflict of, it's not that she doesn't care about Noah or that she doesn't care about CJ. She cares about both of them. And so she's struggling because they both want to be a part of her life.
Yeah.
And she's struggling to figure out not only what is best for her, but what God wants her to do.
Yes. And that is so crucial in any relationship. What does God want for us? And you just have to pray hard and trust that He'll give you discernment in those situations.
Yeah. And I really like that you're willing to go there. Like, you get gritty with us. Like, none of these characters are perfect. None of them are walking around with little halos.
No,
they're real. They make mistakes. They have their virtues and they have their flaws. And it just makes it such a great journey for the reader because we can relate. Because I'm not perfect.
Well, all right, I'm not going to argue with that. I could. Yeah.
Okay, so how about something a little bit fun?
Okay.
As I mentioned before, her book is set in San Diego County. So for those people who might be familiar with San Diego County, what locations might they recognize?
Well, my closest friends will recognize right off when I talk about a church situation. I'm pretty much talking about my home church. And there's, in one particular scene, I introduce CJ's parents. And they happen to live in a home that's very much, that is, the home of one of our dear friends. And so my closest friends recognize that right off. But also, I think I have them going to Balboa Park, to the world famous San Diego Zoo, and to the beach. At one point, they go to have some dinner at Jake's restaurant in Del Mar, and so a couple of those things, are just landmark San Diego things, and it's fun for people who know the beach life here.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it definitely is fun when you are familiar with the location. You can really picture it.
Yes.
Not that you didn't do a fabulous job of describing it for those who haven't been here. She did.
Good.
We've already mentioned some of the characters' names. We've talked about Katie Ryan and CJ and Noah. And, where did you come up with your characters' names?
Katie is after my mom. We always called her Kate or Katie. And then Ryan is my son-in-law. Now, CJ is a little trickier. Years and years ago, we used to go to a church where a young man, on fire evangelist, would preach, and his name was CJ. And then it so happens that one of my grandsons is named Camden Joseph James, and we call him CJ. So, and then the Jansen just seemed to fit. And one of my best friends, her grandson's name is Noah. So I thought that would be a nice tribute for her.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah. You really have a personal connection to each of those names.
Yes.
Now, is there any resemblance to the characters from the real people? Or should we keep that on the down low?
Yeah. I think, let's just let the reader...
Let the reader decide. For those who know those people.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll move on from that.
Yeah, right.
So I've kind of touched on this a little bit already, but I was wondering, what do you think makes your novel different from other novels that are currently out there? I know it's the hardest question for us to answer as writers, right?
Okay. Well, okay. I think you're right. I think you did touch on it. I think because of my position working at a church, I don't know a whole lot of details of people's lives, but I just know that we live in a time where there are a lot of issues going on for people. And I think we just have to talk about those things. The more we try to hide them, the more we try to bury them, the more they come out some other way. And so I think for me, just being really honest with life situations was, I just felt like that's what I had to do. That's who I am. But I also think that, in our particular genre, we just need to hear that.
Yeah.
Hear that life is tough. We have concerns. We have problems. We have, things that are not right about our lives. And so I think we need to talk about those things.
Yeah, and I love that you address that. I love that there is a time and a place for those really fun, lighthearted stories, and there is a time and a place for the stories that really take us to places that maybe make us momentarily uncomfortable, but make us think.
Good.
Okay. And make us feel, even though maybe we're uncomfortable, maybe it's because we're relating so much. Yeah.
I think that would be a good thing, really.
Because I think sorry.
I was going to say, I just think that would be a good thing to identify so with a character that you go, oh, I feel that pain too. In one case, we realized that Katie is really coming up against, I've got to forgive. And forgiveness is so tough for people. And but it just had to be addressed in this particular story. And so how did she handle that? And how did the person she was trying to forgive handle being forgiven? Those sort of things. Those are really tough life issues, but we need to face them.
Yeah. And I love that you weren't afraid to face them head on, and you handled them wonderfully.
Thank you.
All right, so I have a challenging question for you, because I haven't thrown any at you yet.
Oh, wow.
What did you learn about yourself while writing this book?
Oh, gosh. That is a tough one. I guess, well, on a positive side, I learned that I could do it. I could put a book together from beginning to end that, pretty much held together. I think that was a positive for me to come out of it, saying, okay, I did it. I actually wrote a book that I'm pleased to put out there to somebody. Gosh, as a negative, wow. Well, I guess, speaking back to the whole idea of forgiving one another, I guess when I struggled through that scene, it was the idea that, they're just, it's not an easy thing to do. It's not natural to forgive someone who's hurt you. And so I think I just maybe wrestled a little bit with that whole concept and myself.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us. Okay, so what is your work in progress? What are you working on next? Is there a sequel, maybe, to this book?
Book 2 actually has already been written. I had a great group of friends who I invited to read as I wrote Book 2. It's called The Emerald Horseshoes. And,
the group or the book?
No, the book. It's called, the group doesn't have a name, actually. We'll have to think about that.
There you go.
But they read it and helped me craft a really good plot. So The Emerald Horseshoes actually is also under contract at this time. So I don't have a date yet as to when it will be published. I know I've got some work to do on it probably before that happens, but I'm very excited that that's going to be published. And I just now, as you know, started on Book 3, which will be called The Sapphire Wave. So it's got 6 pages written and not very good so far.
I totally disagree. I've seen the first 6 pages. They aren't perfect, but it's a good start. I told her, what did I say when I finished reading those pages? I said, I want to read more. I can't wait to read more.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. So I know you haven't got very far on the 3rd book.
Right.
But can you tell our readers the premise, the blurb of The Emerald?
The Emerald Horseshoes. The Emerald Horseshoes features another Swick. This time the Swick is an instructor. And so he works in the schoolhouse. He's a very honorable man. And along with being a Swick instructor, he owns quarter horses. And their protagonist is Allison Docherty. And Docherty has caused her to think, maybe I should write a blog. And she calls it the Love Doc. But Allison also has a huge heart for the homeless. And so she lives in downtown San Diego in a luxury apartment that she inherited from her grandmother. And so some homeless people are very prominent in this story. And also she learns to ride. but basically, it's not a love triangle. It's just very... And some people who I've asked to read it say, I think I like this even better than the Ruby Knot. So
wow.
That's great.
Okay,
yes.
Now I really can't wait for it to come out.
Right.
That is high
yes.
praise
yes.
indeed.
Yes, and I trust these people to tell me the truth. So that is good, yes.
So what is the connection between the Emerald Horseshoes and the Ruby Knot?
It's basically the Swicks.
Okay.
Because CJ is a Swick on boat team 12 in Coronado. And Nick in the Emerald Horseshoes is an instructor who actually, as an instructor, he says yes or no to who gets to be a Swick. Okay. I mean, there's a very set group of, challenges that they have to meet, of course. Mm-hmm. So, it's not as if you could say on a whim, you're in, you're out, or anything like that. But he's, but that's the connection between the books. They're both dirty book guys.
Are there any crossover characters?
Yeah, CJ and Katie will make a little appearance in the Emerald Horseshoes, along with some of the other Swick. Actually, there are 6 Swick altogether, although only 3 of them are going to get books, I think. And so there's Nick, who's the instructor, CJ, who we meet in the Ruby Knot. You'll meet Matt Raspitz in the Sapphire Wave. And then there are 3 other guys, Dustin, Tony, and Joe. And you're not going to get to hear those stories, I don't think. Let's see.
Well, for now, we'll have to content ourselves with reading the Ruby Knot.
Yes.
And looking forward to the Emerald Horseshoes. Is it horseshoe or horseshoes?
Horseshoes.
Horseshoes, okay.
Again, a piece of jewelry is featured. And so that's how I got the titles for both books.
What's the silliest thing you've ever done?
Oh my gosh. Probably the silliest thing I've ever done is sign up for live show entertainment at Cedar Point years and years and years ago. I was in live show entertainment. I had to dress up in a crazy costume, like an old-fashioned bathing suit, and get out on the stage and prance around and sing. And I mean, it was a great fun, but it was totally silly as well.
Wow, I had no idea.
Yeah.
So you performed on stage?
I did. I've done a lot of different things. Very, very many different things.
Oh, that's really fascinating. Yes. I'm glad I asked that question. Yes. I learned something new about you.
Good enough. All right. Woo.
What's your favorite dessert?
Oh, gosh. It's a combination of a breakfast food and a dessert. I love blueberry muffins. My mom always used to make those for me. I just love them.
Oh, that's great. That's kind of dessert you can have at the beginning of the day, right?
Right, exactly. Always eat dessert first, because it's very important.
Absolutely. Yes. I totally agree with that.
Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this interview with Jane. And don't forget to check out her latest release, The Emerald Horseshoes, which is on pre-order now and will release December 11th. You do not want to miss this story.